Hello, welcome back to the Silt versus Assam of Flesh and Change. And last session was quite an exciting one. So we had our two custodian groups, Nora and Vitria tackling the Skyward Sprawl, and Dr. Nim Harrow and Frank Idle still in Vernon's Lodge trying to solve the mystery of Winter's Spite. So Vitria and Nora actually ended up descending into a secret floor, the personal chambers of Lucien Baton, where they found Novice Timber, a missing girl whose mother had actually asked Nora to help try and find her. And in the process, they discovered one clue that we'll get to in a second about the nature of the sprawl. Meanwhile, Dr. Harrow ventured into the basement of the Vernon's Lodge Hotel, talked to Peter, a man stoking the furnace, who was essentially there to act as a sacrifice in times of emergency. Um, it was quite a fruitful conversation, but ultimately, Dr. Harrow, after stoking the furnace extra hot to try and get the guests sweating, was locked inside by a mysterious perpetrator. Dr. Harrow decided to drink some, what's it called when Bane takes it in Batman? It's the green glowing stuff. Whatever it is, he just jammed it right in the miracle juice, made himself super, super strong with no consequences yet. It's called Venom, yeah. And smashed the door down. Meanwhile, Frank ventured out into a mysterious hedge maze in search of Ernest van der Kamp, the police commissioner who'd gone missing, and who also gave Frank a bit of a mysterious clue. So as things stand, we currently have Nora and Vitria are still in Lucy Baton's chambers and in Vernon's Lodge, Dr. Harrow downstairs, and Frank Idle upstairs with the guests again. You have 5 clues apiece for both of these active assignments. And just to remind you, Winter's Spite, you got quite confident at the end of last session because this was a complexity 6 and you said maybe it should be more complicated. How are you two feeling about that right now?
Feeling like we're on the cusp of getting ready to crack down on this, but there's a little bit more to be looked into before we attempt it.
Yeah, totally.
Is that a yes to making it more complicated or?
Oh no, just yeah, I guess yeah. I don't know.
You were so confident last week.
Well, then I got
I'm
locked in
leaving
a
it up to
boiler
you.
room, so I'm thinking of
That's
how to
true.
get
It's
through
so
here.
true.
So I don't
Okay,
know.
I'm ha
I'm game for whatever.
What do you think, David?
I was thinking about the mystery from kind of a structural standpoint, and I could definitely see if you're like trying to, figure out the whodunit side of things, it being a 7 or an 8 complexity to do that as a consequence. But
Tell you what, I'll mark it up by 1 to a 7 and let's see how that plays out. So that's currently a -2 to answer it correctly. And the question, of course, is what is driving the Blatecomers rampage? Resolve the assignment by figuring out the ultimate goal of this horrible ice saint that is attacking people in the hotel, neutralizing the threat, and figuring out the motives of anyone who might be controlling it. Meanwhile, Skyward Sprawl, 5 clues again, and you have those 3 different resolutions to the mystery, one of which is simply destroy or remove the body of the original hallowed corpse that created the sprawl, and that's a 4. 6, figure out why the sprawl is growing and use this knowledge to control or prevent it. Or 8, heal the schism between the sprawl and the Slag King's people. So, and that is basically making peace between these 2 factions that are fighting over the tower. So that is where things stand. But before we kick off, we had a couple of advancements last session. So, James, would you like to tell us how has Vitria advanced?
Sorry about that. I forgot how to do buttons. Yeah, so because I am foolish, have taken as my advancement gain a follower, which a custom side character once per session when they can help me with a task, make the associated roll with advantage. And my new fun side character is the bellhop, who is no longer part of my past, but has the ability to intrude into our presence now by helping me. And I think I was saying off camera, off recording, that that will probably be in the form of sort of unwanted helpfulness of a sinister nature.
Incredible. I'm so excited to see how that plays out. And David, we also had another advancement for Frank Idle. What did he take?
Yeah, so of the different advancements, I've taken my last allowable additional faith move from the sheet, which is going to be allow us, please. Basically, when another custodian misses a revelation move, I can selflessly fling my frail body into the path of the outcome. And if I roll successfully on it, then I can instead have my extra hand suffer the outcome, with varying complications if a mixed success. And on a miss, of course, I suffer the outcome myself.
Very nice. Okay, thank you. Well then, let's jump right back in to the Skyward Sprawl, where Nora searching for clues in the living quarters of Lucien Baton, the mysterious architect. And Nora actually rolled a 10 for this, so a full success. And I think we're just going to open now on Nora as you're peering through these bits of papers, these various diagrams and drawings of the sprawl, blueprints. But your eye is actually caught by something in the far corner. This little makeshift nook in the crawl space that Novice Timber, this teenage runaway, has made for herself. And next to the rather rotten looking sleeping bag, you can see accumulated piles of debris, knickknacks and trinkets that she's clearly just gathered from all across the sprawl. And within this pile of maybe old watches, bits of jewelry, a couple of wallets that she's been rummaging through, you do see something shining there, which is not just out of place, but very familiar. Because you've got one just like it. There is a biased Bureau for the Investigation and Assimilation of Stray Deities badge just glimmering amongst the different belongings of the inhabitants of the tower. So that is your clue that another member of Biased is or was active in the tower. Over to you.
I think. Oh, go on. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think Nora's probably going to, I mean, it's Timber's stuff, so she's not going to rummage through it yet, but she's going to like kind of try and get Vitrea's attention and kind of point towards the badge, like, gee, I wonder why the professor didn't tell us someone else had gotten here first.
You do realize he's our handler, right? He just tells us what he thinks we need to know in order to do the mission. He lies at least every other sentence.
I think that's an underestimate. Remind me, is the sprawl still like manifested here? Like,
I'll let you decide how. I could definitely see this being almost a little haven where the fleshy protrusions just seem absent or at least held at bay. But we have established that there are some weird hallowed goings on in this apartment. So you could play it either way, is what I'm saying.
yeah. No, I think Vitria did something that made the sprawl manifest and it hasn't gone away, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I made the sprawl tell us where Novice Timber was, but the sprawl didn't go away, so the sprawl's still kind of hungry.
It's encouraging. I guess Nora's gonna ask Vitria and I guess Timber. Did you find anything?
Can I kind of retcon into the fact that while Nora was looking, I also was poking around as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to roll for anything or?
Yeah, I think I'd like to do an information move just to see if I and I have an idea for introducing my new side character that I'm going to roll with advantage, and if I find something, it's going to be also maybe a key with the word bellhop on as well,
Okay, I will let you have it.
some kind of sinister note with the clue.
I think it sounds good to me. I am, because you're doing this simultaneously with Nora, I think I'm gonna say again, this is gonna be a hard react because we've established that the sprawl is here and it's hungry. So continuing to poke around is very likely to lead to a very bad reaction should you fail. But please go ahead and roll. If you're communing with the bellhop, obviously that might be communion rather than the usual insight or focus, but up to you.
I think I'm also kind of poking around inside the sprawl, so yeah, sorry, my dice roller doesn't appear to be working for some reason. Let me just try loading it again. Stupid thing. All right, let's just try the Google dice roller then for now. Apologies. All right, so I'm going to do it with advantage. I think maybe because I'm a disappointment and the bellhop is has paid attention to me, I might also have kind of lined myself up for disadvantage. So I'm probably a flat roll there, I'd say.
That sounds good. What are you using for your advantage?
The side character thing.
Oh, I see. So you're bringing him in now. Got it.
Yeah. So, but he's both. It, I suppose, is both like haunting me and potentially helping me. So I think in this case, it's just cancelling out what would otherwise be a disadvantage.
Fair enough.
Right, let's just try that. All right. Oh, that's awful. I got a 5.
I mean, since we've said this is effectively no revelation move, let's start with what are you afraid is going to happen now?
I'm afraid I'm going to open a door and either the sprawl or the bellhop is going to be behind the door. Like maybe the Baton's bedroom. If I open that door, something will just be there waiting for me.
Okay. It's going to be worse than that, and I will tell you exactly how in a short second after we have checked in with Dr. Harrow and Frank Idle in Vernon's Lodge. And I think because there's obviously a chance of the two of you coming together, I'm going to start with maybe Dr. Harrow, since he is just hulked out. Dr. Harrow, you have found a frostbitten, very old-looking finger on the floor in the lower levels. What happens now? What do you do?
Dr. Harrow, kneels down to like pick up the finger, but actually, well, he stops just short of touching it and reaches into the pocket of his corduroy blazer, pulls out a handkerchief and grabs the frostbitten finger with that and rolls it up and tucks it away. We can see that he's sweating profusely and his skin is taking on a little bit of like a blotchy red tone along his cheeks and forehead. To anyone, it might look like he may have just been spending a little bit too much in the heat, too close to the boiler. But he knows, and we know that it's something worse than that. But for now, he doesn't let that particularly define his current state of being. I think as he reverts back to a more normal state after that burst of miraculous strength, although obviously with the side effects may include condition. I think we see the occasional ripple of flesh from underneath his clothes, of some lingering malformations that occasionally crop up. He turns back and looks at Peter and says, I think the door is open. And then he blacks out for a minute.
Fantastic. Well, as you're blacked out, let's check in with Frank. Frank, you have returned the commissioner safely to the gaggle of guests wandering in and out of the lobby. Dr. Harrow, strangely, after you heard a very loud clunk earlier, is still nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I think Frank has absolutely swaddled Commissioner Vanderkamp in a blanket after his foray out into the maze outside. And he's at least donned his coat. He's still warming up a little bit by the fire. And I think Frank keeps casting glances to the still just slightly ajar door that leads to the hallway, kind of waiting for Dr. Harrow to show up, waiting. And I think finally he goes over to Montessa and says, can you handle things here for just give me 5 minutes? I heard a noise earlier. I'm a little bit concerned about my my comrade downstairs. I'll be right back. And he'll start just like, I don't even think he'll wait for a response. He'll just run out the room and head downstairs.
I think indeed, and you find yourself in these lower levels, these very uncanny lower levels where the shadows are just playing on the walls like the fearsome figure that you saw outside. But you find your way down to, you can hear a voice just going, hey, the tannoy's not working. We need help down here. And as you come to a door that seems to have been just knocked clear off its hinges, and a furnace room with a baking hot boiler that seems to be just kind of on the little dial, it's going right into the black past the red. And on a little cot, there is Dr. Harrow, looking as he described, more than a little sunburnt and red, lying there flat out, and standing over him, still wearing the kind of the thick furnace gloves with which he's used to kind of place him on the cot, is Peter, the former convict and parolee, now the attendant of the boiler, who just looks up and says, you must be Frank.
Yes, has something happened to Dr. Harrow?
You could say that. We had a little trouble with the door, and then your friend, Nim, he took something, I don't know what it was, but he just took the whole thing down, and then he passed out. Come in.
Yeah, that sounds like him, I suppose. How does Dr. Harrow look? You said he's like sort of sunburnt. Are his eyes like flickering or anything? Or
yeah, I think that you can look at him and like he's clearly like vaguely like feverish, where like he's like half lucid, you know, so like the eyelids are fluttering a little bit, and he's like shivering and he's sweating profusely.
Doctor, are you all right? Is there anything I can get you? Anything you need?
I don't know. He mumbles barely coherently. Frank would have to lean closer to make out that he is muttering again and again something about the taste of metal and the song of existence radiating in his bones.
I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. Taste of metal. I could get you some tea. Maybe we should just bring you upstairs.
He snaps awake. Like his eyelids, like, you know, his pupils like dilate and adjust. And he like glances around in a brief panic before locking eyes with Frank. Goes, Mr. Idle, where am I? What is happening? Where am I?
You're in the boiler here with.
Good. Okay.
I didn't catch your name. Our gentleman here. He was helping you out.
How long have I been out?
Few minutes, not more than that, Peter says.
Oh, okay. I'm okay. No need to worry about me. Frank sits himself up with a little bit of effort, still like sweating profusely, but he reaches to mop the sweat from his brow before he grabs the handkerchief, and just out of it rolls a severed finger, and he goes, oh. And has like leaned down to get that, and realizes that he grabbed that, and offers the bundle to Frank, and is like, I think it is best if you hold on to this.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Did it work? Is it getting warmer upstairs?
I suppose it's raised up a couple of degrees. I was interrupted. The commissioner ran out of the room, out into the maze. I followed him like a fool.
Wait. The commissioner was out of the hotel when?
Just minutes ago. I found him out in the maze and brought him back inside.
And the distance between... I think we have just eliminated one of our suspects. Perhaps because...
No, he's still alive.
No. I do not mean that way, Frank. No. I do not mean that. I mean like as we've eliminated him from suspicion.
Oh.
You see, yes, because the door was locked. Someone shut us in and locked the door. I believe it to be the person responsible for all of this. He dropped that finger. He if our killer, if our suspect is indeed the one who attempted to remove me and Peter from the equation and dropped that finger, then that means it cannot possibly be the commissioner, because the commissioner was, as you say, outside at the time when that would have been occurring.
Yeah, that all checks out with me. I suppose he could be working with someone, perhaps, but
Perhaps,
I'll be
perhaps.
I'll be honest. Commissioner doesn't strike me as somebody who would be able to remain tight-lipped about something like that.
No, he actually strikes me as a buffoon.
Well, I wasn't going to put it in so many words, but
Yes, indeed. We cannot dally. I am all right. We have work to do. Things are bad. Things are going to get worse. If we do not continue forward, always forward, never back.
so I wasn't amazed earlier, and that logic doesn't quite hold. Sometimes you take a wrong turn, but
Metaphors, Frank. Metaphors. We were
Yep,
over
yep,
this
yep, you got it.
earlier.
He gets up and begins to like blanket around his shoulders, is like marching back up towards the upstairs.
Yeah, and Frank
I
like
think just
dutifully collects, anything that might have been left behind and like follows after.
I think just as you're leaving, Frank, Peter just puts a hand on your shoulder and says, I was watching you. You're one of the followers of the Helping Hand, aren't you?
Oh yeah, sure am.
Help me get out of here, please.
Well, what's keeping you?
He just points down to the flashing ankle monitor.
Ah, yeah, I'm acquainted.
No rush, but I'd appreciate it, mate. I really would.
And Frank like holds out his hand to him to shake and says, I'll do my damnedest for you.
I know you lot don't believe in it, but for me, a favor given is a favor returned. Know what I mean? So anything you can do for me, I'll make sure I can do for you.
I'll have your back here. You took care of Dr. Harrow, and it means the world to me. So I'm really thankful for that.
All right. Best get back to the fire then.
And you hear like yelling down the corridors, like from afar, you hear Nim say, "And keep it hot!"
Awesome.
Reasonable
Very
as
nice.
you can.
Okay. Very reasonable. Peter goes back to his work. The two of you return back upstairs to the lobby. Montessa almost has not glanced around from where she is, just kind of gnawing on her nails. The guests look up at you. Ernest Vanderkamp, wrapped in so many blankets. It's a bit of a Princess and the Pea situation where he is just almost completely cocooned. Just goes, there's the gentleman that helped me, Mercy. Everyone, it seems, is waiting. Well, Mercy Vanderkamp says, do we know what's going on yet? Is there a suspect? Come on, we need an update here.
I feel like this is like very kind of like low key. This is that like moment in the Hercule Poirot like novel where it's just like gets the like survey around the room, and we're not quite at the part where it's like we do the j'accuse, but like Nim does have this feverish, almost like mad intellect present in his eyes. Were the lighting in this hotel just a bit dimmer, a bit less accommodating to the wealthy elite, people would notice that his forehead is beginning to glow a pattern. But for now, the time being, that is unseen. He looks around the room and then snaps his fingers and points to Frank, and then says, and then gestures to like one group of people, like half of the room, and says, "I'd like you to take Frank, please lead them into the kitchen and prepare for them your finest hot toddy." And that includes Vanderkamp as well, just like points to a few people, just being like, get them warm drinks, and says, "The other half, I would like to speak to you personally, one by one, if you don't mind, and then we will swap. Swap."
Excellent. So if I understand it correctly, you're going to divide the group in two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sending half of them to the kitchen with Frank and the other half staying there with you.
Yes, and of the half staying there with me, I definitely want to have Frank Pilanch and Ray Ghibli in my half, because I don't think I've interacted with them much at all. So I want to make sure I get the opportunity to speak with them.
Perfect. The cook is still in the kitchen, as Rams pointed out. So Frank is going to bring them in there to make a comforting hot toddy under the auspices of the frozen Emery.
Move Emery into the freezer.
No, Frank steps in. Wait here by the door. Actually, Commissioner, can I get just one of those blankets? Just the long one, thank you. And then he just like kind of drapes it over and just kind of gently pushes the cook with like some effort. The cook was a pretty big guy, if I remember right. So he like with some effort kind of shifts him towards the edge of the room. So there's just in the background this frozen statue of of the chef covered in a single blanket, obscuring its form.
Amazing. Okay, so just to establish it, and then we're going to go back to Vitria and Nora. So in the kitchen, Frank having shifted Emery out of the way, we have Montessa herself. We have Leonora, who's one of the remaining staff members working at the hotel, and we have the Vanderkamps, Ernest and Mercy, his wife, who's a singer, remaining in the lobby with Dr. Harrow. We have Frank Palanch, the famous skier and athlete with his long flowing blonde hair, who was tinkling on the ivories earlier with the piano. We have Ray Ghibli, the slag prince, the construction magnate. And we have Mr. Nib, the very, very sort of taut, small looking man who is just smiling faintly to himself, who always just stands just over Ray Ghibli's shoulder. He is apparently his accountant, but may also be his bodyguard. So as those two groups separate, let's just switch back across to the Skyward Sprawl, because Vitria, you feared that as you were trying to explore the chambers looking for other clues as Nora worked, you might find that the bellhop was just standing there in front of you. And this is how it's going to be worse than that. As Vitria opens a door, just maybe a closet door, you look out onto your childhood apartment, but it is completely bare. The dimensions, the walls, the view, it's all there, but everything has been removed from it. And standing in the corner, his back to you, just shaking, is your father. And he says, going down, going down, going down. And as he turns to look at you, his face is gaunt, his eyes hollow. He looks utterly ravaged by the years. His hair has turned entirely white. And he says, Vitria, you must come and find me. And as he stares into your eyes for a moment, just the door slams shut on you once again. And as you blink, Vitria, you realize that you are missing something. He has taken your hard hat.
If I do a verse, can I have that whole thing still happen but not lose my hard hat? Because I like it. I like everything about it except losing my hard hat.
That is absolutely fine. Yeah, you can knock it up, but we keep the fact that that happened in, and you will still get a clue out of it.
And I think I have a tone appropriate verse because we haven't marked the verse of the concrete jungle yet. So if the sprawl is trying to terrify us with shining like vistas, that seems very appropriate. So I might mark that and put it up to a 7 to 9, but that's still terrifying.
Lovely. So for everyone, the verse of the concrete jungle, which is the assignment verse, each custodian recounts an episode from their childhood when a god violently warped the built environment around them. So an episode from your childhood when a god violently warped the built environment around them. Very happy to leave it free, or obviously when we have the halftime breaker at the end, very happy for Ed to come in then. So just play it as you like, or let us know when you want to jump in with that one. But that takes it up to a mixed success. So I guess it's mixed success, and Vitria is keeping the hard hat. So what can I give you as a consequence? Because you're already all conditioned up.
Oh. I guess I might just. I mean, would that mean I'd have to do 2 verses? If I then
It-
accumulate a new condition, I had no choice but to mark another verse or write another verse because I'm already full.
That would make sense.
I think that's
Alternatively,
it's all I can do, and then I replace one of my conditions with a new condition.
okay. In that case, which condition would you like to lose?
Good question. Let me have a look. I think I'll substitute zealots in pursuit for something because I'm enjoying the other 2.
Okay, so I think the condition very simply is come find me, Vitria, or similar. It is you are gonna keep seeing your father, and he's gonna keep kind of crying out to you in interiors to come and rescue him
Oh dear.
because the bellhop has him.
Oh dear.
Okay, cool. And then yeah, please mark up a couple of verses.
Yeah, I think I have one I can combine with the concrete jungle, so I have an idea.
Lovely. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, I can do it
Awesome.
because otherwise I might forget how I was going to combine them. So I have to show how a god warped the built environment around me, and I've ticked the verse of history for a flashback of your youth that shows your rebellious experimentation with illegal divinities. And I think Vitria liked to keep things in the ventilation ducts around, in the room, the apartment, near the penthouse. And one thing she found once was a innocuous seeming mold that she found on the sidewalk one day going to a very expensive department store with her family, with her mother. And it seemed like it had these cool, like silvery black striations in it. It seemed really cool to a sort of 7-year-old Vitria. So she took it home with her, and she kept it in the crawl space. Unfortunately, that was the start of the great variegated rot incident, where it spread and grew rapidly out of control through the ventilation system, and the exterminators, who are basically like gods, like the disciples of a god, also called the exterminator, who exterminates things from buildings, came and had to burn out all of the ventilation shafts. But for years after that, there were outbreaks of it, as the exterminator's disciples had to be called in intermittently to burn out patches of fungus. So no one ever knew it was Vitria that did it, but it was her fault that the rot grew in the ventilation systems.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you. Well, I think as this door slams on you, Vitria, you just find that a single sheet of paper, just as if caught in the breeze, floats down and you catch it. A gift, perhaps, from the sprawl, or maybe from the bellhop himself. And as you glance at it, it's heavily redacted, lots of black lines here and there. But this does appear to be a document signed and notarized by members of the legislatures. So it's a government document. And it appears to be a final report on a military experiment, a bunker god of defensive architecture. And it's quite hard to make out through all of the redactions, but what is clear is that for whatever reason, this experimental god of the military was seen as disastrous. And there's a final kind of rejected red stamp across the entire thing. So that is your clue, a redacted government document chronicling disastrous attempts to create military gods of defensive architecture. So I think probably Nora.
We'd be back in the present now, wouldn't we? Because that was in the past, and I think when Nora asked me, "Have you found anything?" Vitria will look around and say, "We have to get out of here, Nora. Every time I open the door, it looks back at me."
Are you speaking metaphorically or no? No. Okay, yeah, let's
This isn't a
I think
metaphor.
Nora kind of turns towards well, I have forgotten her name. What's her name?
Novice Timber.
Okay. Nora kind of turns toward Novice Timber with her unrealistically protective mice. And she's like, we're gonna get out of here. Are you gonna come with us or
You promise that if I come with you, you'll come back for my parents. You won't just abandon them here. Because I know what the government does, right? They torch everything if they can't figure out how to stop it. So I'll come with you, but please don't abandon them.
I've seen that happen before, Timber. You're right. By default, the easiest solution would be to bring this place down. But I think we need something a bit more sophisticated than that in this situation.
Okay, she says, and suddenly maybe you can see the weight of the months that she's spent just living and surviving out here. She looks a lot older than she really is for a moment, just a lot more world weary. And then she turns and she starts just dropping a few of those trinkets and gewgaws into a satchel, zips it up, scatters a handful of feed across the floor for the mice, and then kind of thinks better of it and just tips the whole bag down and says, "All right, don't get greedy, guys. Good luck to you." And then she just shoulders the satchel and says, "Where to?"
Down.
And it's perhaps not entirely a good thing, but as soon as you say that, the elevator that you communed with earlier just ding, the doors quite cheerfully open as if it's expecting you.
I'm beginning to understand what you mean about the doors. Like Nora's the first person to step into the elevator. Like she does not care enough not to.
I thought at first this was about your god wanting jump scares, but it's worse than that. Far worse.
All right, well, you pile into the elevator. Where are you headed to?
We need to get back down to the lobby and try and like figure out what to do from there, and hopefully if they're all fighting up the top, if we can get down to the bottom, we can outrun them.
Did we start in the lobby or did we start in the basement?
I
You've
think we
never been to the
started.
lobby.
No, we never got to the lobby. We started below and then we got the lift all the way up due to a divine miracle.
Okay. So lobby?
Can it possibly be worse than the basement?
You press the ground floor button, and Vitria, maybe it's only for a second that you seem to see your finger as it reaches for the button almost forms the silhouette of kind of a grinning man, the bellhop himself, as you press it. But the elevator door is shut, and indeed the sounds of violence from the floors above you grow fainter and fainter as you descend and descend and descend. And then ding, we open out onto the lobby. And now the lobby is cathedral-like, like the penthouse, just it's a magnificent vision. You can understand why Baton was so sought after as an architect. It is this very grand vault-like space with soaring murals and concrete egg box ceilings lit with diffuse light. This place, the first thing you notice is it is not entirely unoccupied. As you enter the lobby, you can see that there are barricades set up, but more importantly, kind of desks and tables, barrels and crates. This appears to be a bit of a war room, a command center. And both of you can see the murals of the Slag King are actually hanging on makeshift banners from the walls, graffitied here and there. And as the doors open, several zealots look up at you all at once, their hands kind of looking up from their writing. Just to paint the scene before we get into that, folks. So we've described this beautiful cathedral-like space. We know that the Slag King's operatives are here. It's also worth mentioning, just because I love reading James's writing, the space has strange acoustics, returning distorted whispers and mysteries. Paint the scene. How do the murals in the lobby tell the story of the building's founding? How has the sprawl subtly twisted them? So I think to give some direction, I think this is fun. I'd like to do this chronologically, maybe. So, you know, each of us describe in turn a different stage of the creation of the building. So, Nora, let's start with you. What does the first mural depict, and how has the sprawl twisted it?
I think the mural starts like at the very beginning of Lucien Baton like actually designing the building. So I think it's got like his like drafting table and his blueprints. And before it would have just been, you know, the sort of why is the word coming to mind? Art Nouveau. I don't think it's Art Nouveau. But you know, like when you get like what are they called? Stained glass windows where it's like saints or Mary or like whatever, like very church-like and also not entirely realistically human in proportions and such. So before it would have just been like him at his table, like in front of an open window that's looking out into kind of an empty lot where the building is going to be. But now the edges of the window kind of have those like, now I want to say intestine plants. I don't think there were intestine plants in the garden, but you know, like those like fleshy like plants and flowers kind of growing around it. And there's kind of a shadow in one corner of the mural that at first glance it looks like it might be mold, but it's actually like a kind of grayish black just shadow of a person or saint or god. You can't quite tell who's looking at Lucien Baton, but he does not seem to notice. He's continuing with his work.
Very intriguing, thank you. David, let's go to you for the second mural. What does it depict and how has it been reshaped?
I think the depiction is of once again Lucien Baton, but this time he's like, you know, not in whatever more formal outfit he has when he's, you know, over his board doing his layout. Instead, he's like got that shirt like open, like a suspenders. He's got like that rugged everyday man look to him in this depiction, right? And he's got a shovel that he's, you know, just cracked into the earth. He's got a small pile of dirt behind him. It's like breaking ground for the construction. In the background, there are, you know, a variety of stacks of rebar, a cement truck. And all of that is part of this, you know, very idealized, you know, groundbreaking ceremony that's going on here. And then how it's twisted, you see in the background, rather than having like other workers or having like onlookers, you know, cameras or anything like that, instead you have like row after row of people kneeling down, worshiping this moment depicted in this fresco there.
Beautiful, thank you. And Alex, mural number 3, what do we see next?
I think kind of breaking the immediate flow, still chronological, is a dream, like from Lucien Baton's mind amidst the construction mass around him. He sleeps in a bed of rebar and steel and concrete, and dreams a glorious dream of a future with all buildings like the Sprawl, glorious architectural feats of concrete and glorious architectural wonders that fill an entire skyline, an entire landmass. This dream of the future, of building towards it, as at this part in the chronology, it's that kind of metaphor for, like, you know, success goes ever further. You know, it's always moving towards something better and something new. But the way that it's been twisted is his dream is a nightmare. It's not this glorious vision of progress anymore. It is a harrowing fever dream of misshapen, impossible, hazardous architectural dangers, of cancerous concrete growths that boil over the landscape, choking the life out of rivers and plants, and incorporating biomass into its overall mixture. It is a world of concrete and flesh.
Awesome. I love it very much. And then Vitria, as you stare out across the lobby, what is the final mural that you see? What does it depict and how has it been transformed?
So this is like what's called in a church a tympanum. So it goes above the door on the west entrance on a church, but it's the exit doors. It's like a sort of semicircular mural above the door. And it originally, because Vitri is familiar with the iconography, it would have shown the apotheosis and hallowing in concrete, like the imagined reward of Lucien Baton, where normally you would see them arms outstretched, sort of thinking blissfully into a placid lake of concrete, looking at like what they've made above. But it's changed. So instead of it being peaceful, he's struggling and thrashing and being consumed by a kind of rippling, clutching mire of concrete. And if you follow the gaze, his sort of horrified gaze up, you can see that in the sky at the very apex is the face of Mother Asbestos, her weeping rust face looking down impassively on him.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yes, this final mural that we said was above the doors and above the exit. And you can see it kind of just across the other end of the lobby, near, but between you and it are these followers of the Slag King. Probably clerks and scribes, I'm imagining, again, writing on these plans, consulting a little kind of battle map, almost like a little tabletop miniature of the tower itself, where they're moving little pieces around. And at the very center, framed in a spotlight under that fourth and final mural over the doors, there is this huge chrome altar. It's something that's been assembled from broken bits of lobby furniture that have just been melted and welded into a huge pile, bearing the image and icon of the Slag King. And on top, a rather large figure turns to look at you. The man is massive, entirely hairless, and he is just daubed in grease, his skin heavily scarified, his robes fluttering with liturgical fragments of architectural plans, almost blueprint robes that look rather beautiful. The man kind of raises a hand to his larynx, which is, you can clearly see a metallic voice box on it, his throat a scarred ruin. And he says in a heavy metallic voice that I will not try and imitate, "Sister, what news from the upper floors? Have we driven those zealots back? Come, I will hear your report."
Is he talking to us? Sorry.
He definitely has clocked the orange hard hat and believes, momentarily at least, that Vitria is one of his disciples.
I think Vitria will turn to Nora and say, I really hope that this is sufficiently dramatic for us to survive. And almost like with an eye to the optics of it, they stand so with like Nora on one side, Novice Timber on the other, Vitria with her hard hat in the middle, sort of, and she looks up and says, I've heard of you, Monger. You are not considered to be a licensed preacher of the faith. What are you doing here, zealot?
I'm muted. Very interesting. Okay. So Vitri, what are you going for here? Are you going to try and like cow him by showing that you are an actual authority of the faith, not this kind of little cargo cult he's built up here? Is that the plan?
Yeah, basically I'm going to try and reestablish some religious authority as also a surveyor, and basically try and get him to give up a little bit of information so that we can, like, force our solution before we leave and try and figure out how to stop. I think we're probably going for the middle option of trying to figure out how to stop the building growing anymore and freeze the conflict.
I love it. It is risky because I don't think he really answers to your people necessarily anymore. So I will definitely ask you to make a presence roll. But first, tell me, what are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I'm afraid that they're not going to believe us, and we're going to be locked up. And I don't know. Basically, what happens to any heretics of a faith?
I think that's pretty valid fear. Yeah, please roll.
I think I might show. I have an item in my altar, which is a private letter from the Clinic of the Bleeding Witness, and I'm going to hold it up and say, look at all of the disciples of Munger and say, look at this, brethren. He claims to be a moral exemplar, but he has been receiving correspondence from other unlicensed faiths. There is a joint partnership discussed here, a mutually beneficial arrangement. Why is he riling you up and causing you to die up in the upper floors of this building? Could it be commercial self-interest?
If you succeed, you will get such a collective gasp. Yep. Awesome. Please roll.
All right. So that would be, I'm guessing I've kind of set this up as presence, despite my mediocrity at presence.
You have, but if you're doing this with advantage, I am going to say you've got a disappointment, which is all about dramatics. So I'm going to make you roll that as a flat, if that's all right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because and then maybe Nora will have to save me by so we can get the ratings up if it all goes wrong. That is a 7.
7, a mixed success. Okay. All right, let's jump right back across to Vernon's Lodge. Let's start in the kitchen. So, Frank, you have gathered together Montessa, the owner, Leonora, the waitress slash maid, a younger woman who you have not met before. She looks at you, I think, with suspicion, but then as she drinks your hot toddy, I do imagine that maybe it melts away a little bit, and she says, "Wow, it's really surprisingly good, thank you." And then who else did you have with you? Oh, and the Van de Kamps, of course. So the commissioner and his wife. Everyone is gathered around you, kind of enjoying the hot toddy. Is there anything you want to do at this moment?
Yeah, I think Frank is going to focus in on Leonora a little bit because we did find the newspaper clipping regarding the death of the late Mr. Vernon there in her chest in her room. Now, of course, she doesn't know that I've gone through her room, I think Frank is going to give her his like most winning smile. I'm mighty pleased you're enjoying the beverage. It's a specialty of mine. My late father, he taught me how to make them, and used to make them for him and my grandma all the time. And now I make them here for you. I'm delighted. I find a nice hot toddy. It helps soothe the fears, warm you from the inside out. You know.
She looks
I
at you with a little genuine pity, and she says, sorry, it's me on WhatsApp. She looks at you with a little genuine pity, and she almost leans in and says, you can drop the patter. It's just you and me, right? How long have you worked in service?
mighty long time. I actually was here about a decade ago. I didn't see you then. You must have joined here, what, the last 4 or 5 years or longer?
No, this is my first year. Hell of a year to pick, huh?
Huh. Hell of a year indeed. What brought you here, if you don't mind me asking? This is kind of a remote place to find work.
She just kind of maybe gives you a little bit of an uncertain glance and then shrugs and says, honestly, I've been a bit of a drifter this past year, just, heading through town to town, trying to find a job that fit. And, I can't say I'm fond of all these rich bastards, but at least the pay is good up here and the tips, they can be all right as well.
Yeah. Had some periods of travel myself. I don't really know quite what's brought me here today, aside from the murder, of course, regrettably. But yeah, so the pay is fine. Everything here is to your liking. Still,
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's to my liking. I work incredibly long hours. When they get drunk, they could be obnoxious and rude, these rich types. They ask for caviar on a silver platter and they expect it to bring it to them in 30 seconds flat. They do nothing but take and take and take, and at the end of it, if you're very lucky, they might hand you a few banknotes without looking at what they've given you. And then, of course, Emery died. Adjudicator Groan died. So no, of course I'm not happy here. Why would I be?
sorry, that was improper of me. So just between the two of us, you bear any kind of grudge? They, this kind of industry, there's all manner of unpleasantness that we put up with on our side of the bargain, but some guests can be more trouble than others. Anything caused you particular discomfort here?
Leonora just smiles very sweetly at you. She just completely keeps your gaze and she says, what was your name again?
Frank.
Frank, if you think I had the power to summon down a saint of ice and snow to freeze the bollocks off any guest who gave me a hard time, was too rude to me, treated me like shit, like nothing human, don't you think there'd be a trail of frozen corpses between here and the lowlands? Like, Groan was a bastard these last 2 nights. A total, utter bastard. But if I had the power to kill him, I'd have killed others before him too,
Didn't mean to sound like I was implicating you. In fact, perhaps quite the opposite. I ask you these questions just to better understand maybe what's been going on here. Somebody here is to blame, and if you feel like pointing some fingers, or if you know anything that might aid in our quest for the truth, I'd be most obliged if you could help me.
She just leans in and says, I know another server when I see one, and Frank, can I be honest?
Always.
Jovial conversation Jovial conversation suits you just fine, but you're not a good manipulator. Excuse me. And then she's kind of takes off with 2 more glasses of the hot toddy and goes, Mr. and Mrs. Vanderkamp, here, have a refill. And she kind of gives them a bit of that sort of same jolly chatter, laughs at their nervous jokes as she gives them their drinks, and then kind of begins tidying up around the kitchen without looking back.
Is there a closet or a pantry or anything like that here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the walk-in freezer. There
Yeah.
would also be, I imagine, maybe next to it, a rather large pantry with its own door to keep the rats out.
Frank is after she's handed off the beverages, he's going to grab like Leonora's arm, not like roughly, but almost like he'd be guiding her somewhere, puts on a smile, of course, for the others in the room and says, "Can I borrow her for just one moment?" And he pulls her off into that walk-in freezer and he closes the door behind him. And then he takes a hand and he stabs it into his chest and pulls out a second Frank. He pulls out an extra hand. And standing, and like when he does this, like I don't think he bothers coloring his mouth. With the heavy door closed behind him, you hear him go like ha as he like pulls this flesh out of his flesh, hand in hand now with another before Leonora. And then he and Frank too both look at her, and he holds up a finger instructing the Frank extra hand to wait, and he looks at her. I much prefer politeness. It's what I'm best suited for, I think, but it's not the only thing that I'm aware of. And he taps the extra hand on the shoulder. Would you just stand in that room quietly for a minute? And he opens the door, and Frank leaves, and he closes it behind him. It's just the two of them in the room, and he says, "The difference between you and I is that if I had some power to summon a saint of ice and snow to freeze the bollocks off of anyone who slighted me, there would be no trail of bodies between me and Clottage or wherever I came from last. I think that life is precious in its own ephemeral way. And for us to summon that power into our own hands and take it, why, it's the realm of the gods to be capricious. Shouldn't be ours. Somebody died here. Not just one, but he gestures his head roughly to where Emery stands in the room beyond. But others too, and more will come. You've been here this last year. You know how people talk around the service workers. I need you to tell me what you know."
So I think before we roll, we're just going to establish that, when this extra hand came grotesquely and viscerally out of Frank, Leonora seems like a pretty steady young woman, but of course she kind of slammed back against the cupboard, hyperventilating a bit, and instantly grabbed a rather large carving knife from the side, and she is still now holding it. And as she stares at you, she says, "I knew this would happen. Some rich bastard gets offed, and then the cops come and they look for someone who's not on a proper work contract, someone who doesn't have any coins. And listen, I'm not going down for this, all right? So move out of the way and I just walk out of here. But I'm not taking the fall for what happened to Groan. So please," and you can feel the kind of slight quiver in her voice, "please just let me go."
I think Frank, his smile softens, but it does not leave his face. He takes some steps forward towards her, and I think he reaches out his hand, and maybe she like kind of like swipes towards him, and he just like, I think he will go to just grab the knife and just like let it cut him, does not care. Just like grab hold of it, and not with like an intention, like with any malice in his body, in his the way he's carrying himself, but like to hold it and stop her and like lock eyes with her and say, I don't think I'm here for you. I wish to see justice done here. I need your help to do that.
Okay, I think this is a presence roll. This is really interesting. I think there is definitely obviously a risk here. What are you afraid is the risk here, Frank?
I don't think Frank is really concerned about his own life or limb here. I think Frank is most worried that if she has something weighing on her that she really just can't say anything, and that even being in this circumstance may put her in further danger. I think that's what Frank's worried about.
I think that's, yeah, absolutely valid. All right, please give me a roll to see, can you persuade her? Presence. I reckon that she think of another justification. It could be focused, Frank's steely kind of gaze he's
I feel
holding
like
here.
presence is right. It's definitely there's some convincing going on here.
Hmm.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a 10 on the dice plus 1 to no, I have a 0 in presence. Never mind. Plus 0. It's a 10 on the dice.
I think with a 10 on the dice, just as you stand there, the blood just kind of dripping down as you're kind of holding on to the blade of the knife. The two of you just kind of lock eyes for a long time. And then she drops the knife with a clatter and says, God, what are you doing? Grabs a cloth from the side and begins bandaging up your hand. And, you know, she does it with genuine care and concern. I think definitely you get the sense of real human sympathy for you as not like the guests. She may see you as a cop, but she definitely understands that you are not like the ones who walk above in Vernon's Lodge. She bandages it up and says, so you want justice, huh? You're some kind of cowboy cop like in the TV serials. You're riding in here and you're going to put everything right.
Just with two of us. I didn't know what I was getting into when I joined my organization. It was incidental mostly. I was working for Dr. Harrow and things happened. And he ended up over here working for Biased, and well, at the time I wasn't really thinking beyond that anyways, and even if it were now, I think I would have made the same choice to follow him over here and work with them, but I didn't join this for any kind of nobility. I think there's goodness in the hearts of people, and I hate seeing wrong done by them. Even to those who arguably deserve something. I hate being the one to met that out. I'd much rather be a defender of people's well-being than an arbiter of their fates.
She looks at you with this kind of mingled cynicism and wonder, like she's staring at a completely different species. And she says, you really mean that, don't you? You're a Boy Scout, Frank. You're one of a kind.
I actually was never in the Scouts. My parents. That's neither here nor there. It's not what you're talking about. I was just talking to Dr. Hare earlier today about metaphors.
Leonora kind of reaches down and she kind of picks the knife up off the floor and kind of very carefully cleans it and cleans the floor. And then she kind of puts it back in its holder and pauses for a second. And then she says, if you're here for justice, then there's maybe more than 2 bodies you need to worry about. It was 6 months back now. I was still relatively new. I didn't really know my way around the hotel. I was trying to get my bearings, and I went walking up the mountain into the wilderness. There's an old shrine to the Hall-Bitten Hand. I went up looking that way. It was nice. I like being alone. And then I found it. Half buried in the snow, an old car. It was rusted, the window smashed, blackened and charred. It looked like someone had burnt it. And inside there were 4 bodies. Skeletons, no flesh left on them. They looked like they'd be burnt as well. I told Montassa, and she told me not to worry about it. And then the next morning, Emery went out with a shovel, and I understand he buried them. I don't know what that was, but if that's something to do with Groan, if that helps you towards what happened here, maybe you can get justice for them as well, whoever they were.
Well, I'm not sure yet if all of the dead bodies on this mountain are linked, but I can't say that they aren't.
Okay. That is your clue. A buried car in the snow and 4 burnt bodies inside. Let's jump across to Dr. Harrow, still in the lobby, entertaining your 3 suspects, Frank Palanche, the skier, and Ray Ghibli, the Slag Prince, and his accountant / bodyguard, Mr. Nip. What are you doing?
I will very quickly narrate my verse of
Beautiful.
the concrete jungle, since that was marked, since I think that as Nim is looking at these 3 and his vision kind of wanders around the framework of the room, his mind wanders for a moment to a time in his childhood back in Nesh, an adolescent, probably in about maybe 11 or so. It was a class trip to at that time, in development, monument that was being established in the greater Nesh metropolitan area. It was this massive steel framework, little more than a skeleton at that point, but it was basically intended to be this massive brutalism meets Art Deco depiction of a metal and concrete man that would be reaching towards the sky. It was you could walk up in it. It was going to be this huge splendid addition to the Nesh skyline. There was a large fountain out front with a plaque that read, "Man's grasp exceeds his nerve." And as they were being escorted through the interior of this exposed rib cage of steel and construction workers welding things into place, the tour guide, a representative of the kind of joint steel workers and architectural congregation, were explaining the representations that this monument would be expressing, and kind of its channels for faith in certain areas. And the teacher accompanying the field trip, obviously, did ask a few pointed questions to lead her youngins in the right direction of learning. And one of those things was regarding the subject of sanctified stainless steel, because usually to prevent a destructive amount of oxidation, steel needs to undergo the proper sacrifices to receive an immunity to sprouting rust and that sort of thing. And the guide, in his very nice suit and well-coiffed hair, just laughed and said, "No, no, 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 no. We are embracing a newer, more enlightened form of ensuring the longevity of our structures. Allow me to explain." And then went on to point out the non-sacrificial techniques that they've been using to ensure the purest, strongest steel that would not need to be compromised or rendered in a way that would detract from its nature as just a pure edifice of steel. Well, unfortunately for those aspirations, as that field trip was subject to that day, you do not cheat the family's corrosive cousins. And the ferric blight, she of the rusting breath, like an infection of the lungs in that rib cage that day, bloomed with ferric ferocity. A oxidizing tarnish, a great cancerous bloom of flaking iron rust that began to violently sprout throughout the structure, causing steel to crack and bend and decay into just greasy iron dust. And it was just short of a massive cataclysm that could have claimed the lives of everyone in that structure. Instead, young Nim just simply was able to watch as the entire rib cage structure of that torso just broke and collapsed away in a large circle that mostly took workers with it and left a lot of the people in the middle completely fine, just subject to a lot of inhalation of rust and other smells. And that monument was never completed. So as Nim stands there looking around, his eyes first settle on this skier, Mr. Why did I forget his name immediately?
Blanche.
Thank you. Yes. He turns to him and says, Mr. Planche, is it all right if I call you Mr. Planche?
Call me Frankie, baby.
Mr. Planche. You are as I understand it, very well accomplished skier. Is this the mountain you frequent, or are there other ski towns across the peninsula that you are more fond of?
I wouldn't ski in this pit. Believe me, this is for tourists. No, I go up further north. There's actually a private slope. I like to go there and just get my skis on and, commune with the mountain. This place, no, this place is for people like Grown. They wanna get on a green run and make some noise and look like a big man, but that's not it for me. You know what I mean?
No. Mr. Ghibli, do you concur with Mr. Palanchi's assessment of this mountain? I know that you, as a construction magnate, must see various locales through a different lens from more of a, if he calls it a tourist spot, that must be a boon to your line of work. Would you concur that this is clearly prime real estate for someone of the construction business?
Ray, this kind of bear-like silver-haired man in this suit that he's just it's creaking at the seams. He just kind of gives you a bark of laughter and says, "No, I stay off the slopes myself. I've got an allergy to dangerous activities. Frankie here is very welcome to be alone on the slopes."
Oh, indeed. But more so, I'm asking this region. Do you have a vested interest in this mountain? Are you involved in any of the construction projects that I've heard about in the vicinity? I would assume that you are involved in at least one of everything on the peninsula, given your status.
His eyes flash threateningly for a moment, and he just says, "Well, I can't be talking about business, not in a setting like this, but if you want to speak to Mr. Nib here about my business affairs, maybe when this whole thing is over, we can put in an appointment in Glottage and you can come visit me. We'd like that, wouldn't we, Mr. Nib?" And Mr. Nib kind of next to him just goes, "Yes, indeed. Scrivener be praised."
Ah, I see. Is that your given name, Mr. Nib, or an adoptive sobriquet as a marker of your faith?
A sobriquet, and what a lovely word. Thank you so much for using it.
Ah,
I do like it when someone displays a rather advanced lexicon.
I was a very schooled man, I can say that. Well, gentlemen, I have to say that this situation is most definitely, I think we can all agree, an altogether queer affair. There is a lot at hand that I'm sure must be frightening in some degrees, but in most other ways, I assume it is just deeply inconvenient for your interest. Am I right?
You could say that, Ray Ghibli
Indeed.
says, and he kind of gives you a rather unpleasant look. Speaking of which, where's the cavalry? Are we expecting any kind of rescue soon? I mean, there's a killer on the loose here. I don't have to remind you, do I?
He just nods. And the tactic Nim employs is something he has witnessed probably hundreds of times throughout his professional life, which is as he's experienced it in media, he's experienced it in the workplace. It's just as the questions and the frustrations bubble up to the surface, he just ever so slightly shifts his shoulders, clasps his hands behind his back, gives the slightest quirk of a frown, and just nods, as if that could possibly answer their questions. Because in Nim's line of work in his life, he's always experienced people who just somehow exude this sense of like, yes, all is in hand, but knows that just riles up people even more. And he's hoping that just by being completely flappable in the face of these three powerful men, that something might slip amongst any of them. He's raised the physical temperature in the building, and now he's seeing if he can get these three to, emotionally sweat a little bit, and see if just by being completely unblinking in the face of their questions and such like might get them to let loose. So that's my plan.
I think that's really nice. I think there's a risk here, and it may not be to you. It may be a risk that they get so frustrated with you that they, run out into the snow to try and escape themselves, or they kind of march away from you and something else bad happens. So this is risky, I think.
I would agree.
So I will ask you to roll for it.
Sure.
What specifically are you afraid may happen here, though? Let's ask.
I think you hit it on the head. There is that it's that they might make a foolish decision and decide, well, we'll brave it ourselves, and then we'll get lost out. Well, bad things will happen to them out there, or the killer will get away if one of them, who knows? Them getting out is bad.
Sounds good. All right, let's do it. And what are your conditions?
I have,
and then we'll do.
Yeah, I have Ignatius's vendetta. Side effects may include and irradiated.
Okay. Can't really think of side effects may include. We don't really have a social element to that, do we? That's kind of much more physical. It's bubbling under the surface still.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, I'll give it to you as a flat roll.
Very nice. Love that. I assume with I can do this with focus just for my calm disposition. Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And let's see if I can argue the use of an item here. You know what? I think I will. I'll say that I'll add to that by marking my calcium chloride road salts. It's by not answering them directly, but just by speaking about just like from a very boring scientific thing of being like, well, yes, the roads must be salted. Very bureaucratic of explaining the procedures of how, in order to safely have the cavalry arrive, calcium chloride, and just really letting it lay on thick to the constant drone of his calm demeanor. So I'll mark that for advantage.
Very nice.
So yeah, plus focus. Let's see. Oh, hell yeah. That is a 12.
That's a 12. Amazing. Okay, I think a couple of things happen here. So a 12, since we did say risk, but this is information gathering, so I reckon that has got to be
conspiracy clue, yeah.
Exactly, which we also said we wanted, so it's all coming together. I think for the standard clue, what happens is Ray Ghibli just looks at you for a moment and goes, "What kind of answer is that? Just Mr. Nib, give me my checkbook. Give me my checkbook. Look, if this is the game you're playing, we see eye to eye, right? We're both businessmen. I want to get out of here tonight, and you just want to be on your way as well, right? So here is a very generous check, and if you wouldn't mind calling us a helicopter, or else getting whatever car, whatever van, whatever vehicle you came up in, and getting us down in it, down this mountain, off this fucking icy plain, I will be very, very grateful." And he kind of rips it off and hands it to you. And the clue is, and you get to choose this part either now or obviously later when you're answering the question, you can see underneath the kind of blank check scribblings that Ray Ghibli has written a check to another side character in this assignment for a considerable amount of money. So you can see the kind of the faint tracings of the original check that was scribbled on the last check laid on top of that checkbook. So it's Ray Ghibli has written a very large check to another side character in the assignment recently. Is your clue?
Very noticeable indeed.
Very noticeable. And conspiracy clue.
Oh boy.
I think it's just got to be Ray. Let me bring up the rivals. I think Ray kind of leans in and he says, I know people, you understand? I know Joe Lynch. You ever hear about him?
Did not say that
Multiple
I'm
atroc-
familiar.
He's not someone you want to get on the bad side of. He committed a lot of rather nasty acts against the free fishing peoples of the channel. He's in the vicinity. Soon as this blizzard dies down, soon as we can get a phone call out, I'll be talking to him and I'll be giving him your name. Do you understand? He'll be coming for you if you don't play ball. So that's the nice solution there, that check. And Captain Joe Lynch, well, he's the nasty solution. What do you say?
He looks down at the check, looks back up at Mr. Ghibli. John, how generous is this check?
What do you want to try and do?
Oh, if it's... I feel like Nim might look up at him and just be like, add a 0.
Takes it back. You're the kind of man I can do business with, right? I was afraid you were one of these kind of do-gooders, you know, but you don't need to be here to solve a mystery, do you? You need to be here to fix a problem. And the problem right now is I didn't add enough zeros. So there you go.
Takes the check and nods. Tuck, tuck.
Mr. Nib just kind of gives the slightest of like approving chuckles under his breath, just kind of still the dapper servant, but he just like,
He nods, smiles pleasantly, and then turns to Mr. Palanche, and he goes, Frankie, baby.
what? Did you not just hear what Ray said? You
holds his hand out.
yeah, of course. You want me to sign something as well?
Shake, shake, shake. No, no, no. Other hand on him over top, and just wanted to say thank you. And I pass my irradiation into him. He will not know that now, but I will describe that during the next journey phase. What happens to him when it blooms.
Magnificent. Frankie Palanche, the skier, just kind of, yeah. All right. So like Ray said, in fact, should we take a 5-minute break there at that exciting cutoff point? Awesome. I'll see you folks back here in, what time is it now? Yeah, like 10 past 8, sound good? Lovely. Looking forward to it. See you in a bit. Okay, let's jump right back to the Skyward Sprawl. So the lobby of the massive tower. Vitria has just had a mixed success in trying to basically convince Brother Munger of the Slag King's disciples to stand down. Since it was a success, James, do you want to describe what happens as Vitria's voice booms out across this room and Brother Munger and the waiting clerks taking what you've said? What's their reaction?
I mean, I think Vitria says, like, keeps looking to them and saying, we're better than this. They expect us to be fanatics, but we're not all crooks. You know, like the Slag Prince, Ray Ghibli. We're not all one step up from mafioso, like members of my family who I have disavowed. We make the line straight, and we make a good and proper count. We build strong buildings, firm foundations, and new heights. We don't succumb to this zealotry. Why are you following this carnival barker?
I think the clerks just look up at Brother Munger, and then one by one they just kind of drop to their knees in front of you. And Brother Munger, while he remains standing, he just bows his head slightly as if slightly ashamed of himself. And he says, "She speaks true. Come forth, sister. Do not be afraid."
We must stop this building from growing any higher. Will you help me, Father?
I will. And I know what must be done. I know we have lost ourselves in this frippery. We have lost our minds in this place. There's the architect's design. It does something to you, you know. We have lost sight of the way forward, but perhaps with your help and your friends as well, we may come to the only possible solution.
I think my colleague and I have learned that this place bends everyone out of shape and warps them. We understand that you have lost your way, but now tell us what we need to know more to resolve this situation. What have you learnt?
He looks at you kind of wonderingly and then points to the little model tower and says, "What we have learnt, Lucien Beton was a heretic, a blasphemer. He sought to create a tower that would continue to grow and expand beyond anything in the original plans. And as we all know, you must follow what is in the plans." And all the clerks kind of murmur hot fuzz like, "Must be in the plans, must be in the plans." Father Munger kind of puts his hands out for silence and says, "The tower must be cleansed. We have tried to take it floor by floor, but I fear there is only one solution, a cleansing solution, a purging solution." And I think in case it wasn't quite clear, the consequence to your mix success is very much the fact that if the situation is not resolved now, if you do leave, the war will end explosively between the two factions. So this is very much kind of the pressure is on to solve this here and now, or leave, and very much this is going to end in blood between the two people. Lucien Beton's ghost is 100% kind of hissing and whispering around Nora like, "Fools, credulous fools, they do not see what buildings can be."
I think Fitri is looking at Nora as well, because the problem is the narrative's gone wrong, and who but Nora can change the narrative?
It shouldn't rise. And I think Nora's actually thinking hard about this one while ignoring the ghost just buzzing around her like a particularly large wasp. Shouldn't rise. Shouldn't. So we could, and if that, then they would have to. Then her head kind of snaps up like, "I have an idea. It might be a terrible idea, but it's not supposed to rise beyond the plans. If we make the plans stop at where it is right now, do you think that would be enough to get," she kind of gestures at the towards the ceiling, like at the upper floors. You think agreeing to a slightly taller tower would make them stop for at least a little while, long enough that we could talk them down?
Timber's right. If we burn this place to the ground, all we'll be doing is perpetuating this cycle. I think you're right. A precision engineering solution would be pleasing to the Slag King.
An extension. Father Munger he turns and he begins flipping through the tomes. Like, it would require planning permission. We would need to consult with neighbors, but they would never accept such a compromise. They wish to ascend eternally into the skies. There's no compromise to be had here with these zealots.
I think Vitria looks at Father Munger and says, "But Father, is this not phase 2 of the development?"
Yes. It could be. It could be. So it feels like we're kind of almost approaching an attempt to answer the question here. If it sounds like we're sort of hinting towards almost trying for the hard one, the compromise one. Is that what we're kind of moving towards here?
Yeah, I have a kind of like the yeah, I think we might be, or no, I think were you saying for Nora, is Nora suggesting that we get it to stop growing by basically building the new height of the building into the plan, so that wasn't always the plan, that the building be that high?
Yeah, I think that's what I was going for.
Yeah, rather than a compromise, like literally, yeah, like rigging the plans so that they say that the building was that phase 2 was always supposed to be this high.
I love it in the kind of meddling with reality kind of way.
Like how they always put massive masts on the top of buildings so they can be like the tallest building in the city, even though it's just a mast. My idea is that Lucien Baton started all this by basically the god of defensive architecture that was a disaster was actually the sprawl, which is it was a way of growing bunkers, like 3D printing buildings, but it was like a kind of almost like a fungal concrete culture that would just grow itself, like a CAD design into a perfect shape. So it was licit. It was sanctified by the experimental division of the Slag King's faith under military contract, because it would build itself out to a template, and it would always follow the template, and it would just make endless bunkers, basically.
I mean, think of how much manpower you could save if bunkers grew themselves.
Yeah. And it was sacred, and it was good because it was still following its plan. It had a template, but then Lucien Baton realized that you could essentially hack it to make it, rapidly, infectiously grow, so that he could essentially, I'm getting the impression from what we've established that he was a bit of a what's the guy from Ghostbusters called? Ivo Chandler. Is that
Ivo
his
Shandar.
name? Shandor. That's it. That he was a bit of an Ivo Shandor, and that's why his book was a bit fringe. His religious dread and architecture book, and he was dissatisfied with the idea of just building a normal building, so he snuck in this kind of like the equivalent of the girders of selenium or whatever it was in Ghostbusters. That's about as far as I got.
I mean, that's really good because that incorporates, I think, most, if not all of the clues relating to the tower. I guess the only one that you couldn't in some way work into that is the fact that another custodian is or has been operating, which would take you up to 6 for a 6, which would be a flat roll.
Maybe in a weird way, so the Dreamers of Ease are probably his disciples. Maybe could one of the side characters have been a biased agent who's now has gone in undercover or something? I can't really think of anything.
Maybe they were an agent who was working on like the original project, like supervising the original project. And when Lucien went off the rails, they kind of pretended to go along with it just to keep an eye on him. And maybe they managed to mark the did you use the assignment to pursue your own interests? Like, they were interested in this. They did not expect it to go this badly.
Maybe it's Mother Asbestos and she accidentally marked her final verse and became a saint. Accidentally became a saint.
I love that.
I mean, that book,
I mean-
Religious Dread and Architecture, would definitely be a fun detail with explaining like the concept of faith's involvement in construction, and if it's going towards this theory of like it's growing to reach its final point, as it's like that basically that book could even straight up just like have quotes from Baton along the lines of like basically just imbuing things with purpose, giving things purpose is one of those ways, like imbuing an edifice with a purpose, spiritually or otherwise, is a way to overcome that sense of dread one might feel in the face of the divine. So that might speak to the fact that he had hacked this fungal concrete growth to do this because he had imbued it with a purpose that it has not yet achieved.
There's actually a term for that. It's entelechy. It's like the condition of a thing whose essence is fully realized. The idea of a force that directs an organism towards self-fulfillment. So it kind of like, it's like enhancing the entelechy of the building to achieve its full potential.
I mean, I think this is great. This is a great solution for a 6-on-6. Any other kind of additions we want to make for it, or do we want to roll for that?
Did we use all the clues?
I think you've incorporated or kind of very clearly hinted at a lot of them, like the kind of the infectious nature of the rot, the defensive architecture, government documents about the upper legal limits
Lucian
of airspace.
being
Yeah,
dissatisfied ties really nicely, to the infectious nature of it, of just being like it's suboptimal performance of like it is shedding at a greater rate than it is self-growing. So it's like as it try it's like the it's like the entropy of energy, where it's just like the further it tries to build itself up, the more it begins slawing off other parts and like spreading this infection to like compensate for the taller it gets. That could be like a flaw he saw in it as it was reaching towards greatness.
It reminds me of that political cartoon from like the 80s of perestroika in the Soviet Union, where they're like building new bits with the bricks from the old bits. Yeah, so that's a flat roll, isn't it? Like 6 clues, 6.
it is indeed.
Should I give it a go, or?
Yeah, James, roll for your own assignment.
Yeah, and then if I get a really bad roll, I only have myself to blame. Oh God, what am I doing? Okay. I got an 8.
A mixed success. Very, very nice. Okay, well, I think what the mixed element's going to look like. Why don't we cut quickly back across to let's go back to Frank in order. So Frank, you obviously just spoken again to Leonora in the cupboard. Your extra hand kind of guarding the door outside. She has just told you about some historical corpses that she discovered out in the wilds of the mountain. What are you going to do?
I think Frank, after she tells him all about this experience, these bodies that were found, he looks down at his hand, now bandaged. You can see just a little bit of the blood starting to soak through, and he closes his fist over it, and he puts a hand on her shoulder. I think there is something going on here. I think somebody has maybe some darker designs for this place, and well, I'm going to share this with my my associate, Dr. Harrow, and we'll get to the bottom of this. And we didn't have this conversation. You were just in here looking to grab something out of the freezer, right? And I was assisting you, of course.
Of course, I was grateful for the help.
Yeah, I do tend to be helpful. And Frank turns around, opens the door, just like a crack, so he can look around first. He sees offside the room, there is Frank too. He's over with the mixers for the hot toddy, and is just like pouring it from one glass into another glass, and just like pouring it back and forth, for no discernible reason. And Frank like whistles low, and then gestures for Lenora to leave first. And as she leaves the room, the other Frank approaches, and he grabs him by the hand, pulls them into the room, reintegrates with a and then walks out himself, straightening his shirt slightly, as he asks everybody if they would like another drink.
I can only ever in my mind picture the sound of like Frank splitting and reincorporating as just like a very fleshy gurgle, like something thick is being drained out of a sink. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like that it's like both liquid and solid. It's
How I think of it is like if a zipper was made of flesh.
Oh, hate that even more. Love it.
Yep. Yeah, it's like that sort of like sort of noise, but instead of it being metallic, it's like squishy. I don't know how to articulate it, but that's kind of my thought.
No, I can. I can vividly imagine it, and I wish I couldn't.
Yep.
No. We have a theory that we've been thinking about. I mean, you want to kick it off, David?
Yeah, I think Frank maybe hears a knock on the kitchen door, and I think it's you directing everybody to come and reconvene. And I think Frank can tell from the look in your face that maybe we don't need to split the group up again. I think we're close to something. And so as the group from the kitchen kind of head back towards where everybody been hanging out, in it's not the lobby, it's like the furnace, the fireplace room. There's a
I will say I think the actual thing that like is what that moment when like Frank knows that like, oh, we're ready to go is actually like there's like a moment where like they meet eyes, they look at each other, and Nim just like holds up the check and just like lightly tears off one of the corners, rubs it between his fingers, and shows what happens with it to Frank. And then I think that would be the thing where Frank begins to connect the dots that we've been talking about. So continue.
Yeah. And so I think Frank lags behind as the rest go forward to the sitting room. And it's just like Nim and Frank for a moment. And he looks up to you. 4 more burned bodies on this mountain this year.
And it comes together.
I think it's time I was going to say finger up perp. I don't know if I like that.
I can affirm for you that I don't like that.
Okay, I'll workshop it. We'll present the evidence.
Okay, Frank.
And the two head together back to the sitting room, I assume. I'm assuming we're going to have our grand Hercule Poirot style reveal.
100%. It's a drawing room where everyone's gathered around, kind of sitting like, oh, so I hope you have some answers for us. Ready to hear your theory as you reveal it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll at least like start with some of the theory, at least some of the details. So at least the core of it. David and I have decided that we think that it's Ray Ghibli is the one who is controlling the latecomer and has the ultimate goals behind what's been happening here. First of all, I'm gonna point to 3 clues for sure, and I'll let David take over from there. First of all, the frostbitten finger with the gold ring around the stump that was left outside the door by whoever tried to trap Nim. I think that is the talisman by which the latecomer is controlled by the that was dropped from the perpetrator while they were struggling. And that is a token of their influence over it. That is the talisman at the key of it. I'm flexible as to whether that is like Ray's own finger that he like snipped off, or if it's like a finger that related otherwise. Don't know. We can get flexible, but either way, that's the token that controls it for sure. And that shows that he's been using it. Now, the reason, the big two things I connected, at least on my own, was so that check Ray Ghibli wrote out to me, which I could tell that he'd also written one to another side character. The side character he wrote that to was Commissioner Vanderkamp, attempting to pay him off for something. Now, that bone-colored powder that we found in a bag in Vanderkamp's room. Oh wait, okay, that we lost him. All right, that bone-colored powder. That is actually the evidence that Vanderkamp destroyed the check and was like not amiable to Ray's advances. Now, the reason why it's a bone-colored powder and not shredded paper, it's because as the slag prince, Ray does not use paper in his normal works. He uses a type of paper, specifically stone paper, which is a real thing. It's made out of limestone and calcium carbonate. And it's befitting for the slag prince to use stone paper, which when destroyed forms a much finer kind of dust-like powder if you really subject it to a lot of wear and tear. So that is the evidence of him trying to bribe off Vanderkamp. Now, David, you also had a lot of thoughts on this as well, so please take it from there.
Yeah, so I think we agreed that the objective is to probably do some sort of massive sweeping remodel of the ski lodge and its accommodations on the mountain into some kind of, brutalist modern concrete hotel. And the Temple of the Horbidden Hand, intended to become a hot chocolate house, is that intention, like another change that would be made upon the mountain to encourage this new vision that our Slag Prince has for the commerce here. We think that for Lenora, at first I was thinking maybe she was like involved, like working for, but I think her finding the 4 bodies burned indicates why she might be inclined to look into other mysterious happenings on the mountain, and sees the obituary for Montessa Vernon's father in the newspaper and keeps a clipping of it. I think Montessa Vernon's father was there's like that statue of him on top of this building. He like designed the place. There was no way he was ever going to sell this to anyone else. And so a deep play years ago was the first domino to fall was Mr. Vernon, getting him offed so that he was no longer in the way. And a detail we talked about was, so there's that piece of paper that we used to answer the previous question, like this family tree in the adjudicator's hand, that maybe, not necessarily using that clue for this, but just kind of linking that all together, maybe the adjudicator knew that, or found this, discovered this, that it's not actually Montessa who's the rightful heir for the property, it's somebody else. And so the adjudicator was using that as leverage against the Slag Prince. And so then that's why he needed him to die. So that I think maybe he'd been paying him off for some time, but like he kept asking for more. Like it was clear that this was not going to be a single transaction and something had to be done about him. And so that's why he was killed here. And plus, by killing him here in this public way, it then damages the reputation of the ski lodge, makes it more likely for Montessa to sell at a nice price when he's trying to acquire the property for his own ends. What else?
And actually, I think that just to add like an idea onto this is that since the Temple of the Horbidden Hand is on this mountain, I think that the elderly frostbitten finger is actually the late Mr. Vernon's finger from when he originally got offed, because I think he may have low-key been, at least in some way, a worshiper of the Horbidden Hand, of just like paying respect to this like frost god of the mountains, just especially because if you're running a business there. And this kind of ties into wanting to turn it into a hot chocolate house. I mean, having an official saint mascot as like a freezing saint who also sells hot chocolate is delicious divine marketing irony that the Slag Prince was really thought would help sell big. So that also kind of explains a little bit of like he was he had this token in his back pocket anyway, so might as well use it ever more.
Did we have a good link in for those 4 bodies? I think there's.
I think that it could just be that more evidence maybe of I mean like other people from like this that would have like stood in the way maybe, because I know that like the adjudicator clearly, because like the adjudicator and the commissioner had like a situation there was a situation going on in the adjudicator. Oh, go ahead.
I think I've got it. I think I've got something interesting at least. What if so I think that this I think originally Vernon was sacrificed by the Slag Prince to the Horbitten Hand. And that's like in exchange for that sacrifice and keeping this token, they now have the servitude of this saint upon the mountain. I think that makes sense given the powers that it's exhibited. However, the finger existing, I think, keeps it around, and it allows maybe some kind of orders to be given to it, but I don't think maybe that's all that it does. It's now just a danger that exists on this mountain because of this contract. And so what if like a random car of people was just like frozen to death? And in order to hide that was like their manner of death, they then like burned the bodies to hide any evidence of how they died. And then, originally just pulled it off the beaten path, left it in the snow. That was found. And then the bodies were buried.
Did that to prevent an earlier investigation into the dangers on this mountain, which would have upset his plans to do things anyway. So since that was an incidental matter, not related to his scheme, he had it covered up. And that would also be like the fact that like that would also speak to the fact that like maybe he was paying off Vanderkamp, and Vanderkamp in a very recent strange display of no, I've had enough, is decided I'm not going to take your most recent bribe, Ghibli, and that's why he tore up the most recent check. That would absolutely explain the burnt bodies. Yeah,
I like that. And then I don't think we've necessarily directly indicated the situation years ago involving the adjudicator and the commissioner, and involving some children who survived it. I think we want to leave that unexplained, so that if this all goes horribly wrong, we then have like we overlooked that clue to point to, and can be part of why things don't work out.
Yeah, I'm fine rolling at a -1.
-1, okay. I love it. Please go for it.
David, do you want to roll a die each, since you and I have been pretty split on this?
Yeah, let's do that. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I contribute a 1.
I contributed a 5, so we rolled in total a 5.
Excellent. Perfect.
Do we want to write verses, or do we want to see how John reacts and then take another stab at it again?
Well, I think it's in Silt versus and just Car from Brindlewood purpose to first at least see what happens before deciding to write a verse. So
you're right.
It feels very on brand genre-wise for you to like be disastrously wrong and then have to recalculate as well.
Yeah.
I imagine what's going to happen. It's going to be that very classic kind of it's a murder mystery and the detectives have got something completely wrong, where you explain your theories and everyone goes, "Oh my God!" And Commissioner Vanderkamp is kind of, but was it really you, Ray? Did you kill our friend? And Ray kind of gets to his feet and says, "I understand what's happening here. Extortion, isn't it? You take my check, and now you want to threaten me. Want to threaten to throw me in jail? Want to threaten my livelihood? Because you want more out of me? Well, I can tell you that Ray Ghibli does not forgive, and he does not forget. And what I can also tell you," and he's kind of walking around the drawing room, kind of so angry and red-faced that he does not notice he is just walking right in front of the window. And he goes, "I can tell you that I would be damned if I ever hurt my friend. I would be damned if I ever let a good man like Ernest Groan go into harm's way. I would be damned if I did that. And you can go ahead and you can tell them that I killed him. You can tell them I killed that damn chef and I didn't do it. And you'll look like a damn fool and I will be laughing at," and as he's laughing at, the window crashes in and the latecomer just kind of grabs him, drags him out of the window, screaming as the cold air just whooshes in past all of you. And you hear him screaming and screaming, and then the scream just abruptly cuts out as he is frozen solid out in the hedge maze. That would be the outcome immediately for a miss. The more long-term outcome is obviously the window is open, the latecomer can very much get in.
I
That
mean, this
so
is pretty
tempting.
fun. It is very tempting. It is very tempting to be wrong. I mean, hey, how often do we roll with being wrong, right?
Oh yeah, no, not often enough.
Not often
Yeah,
enough.
no, that's incredibly cinematic, and also it is so fun to think you're right and be wrong. It's
I agree, and also the one change I want to make to what John just narrated is I really hope for dramatic irony that what Ghibli was saying was like, you know, making dead eye contact with Frank and Nim and being like, and if you think you can extort me like this, well, it'll be a cold day in damnation before and then he gets dragged out into the cold.
Yes, absolute retcon. I was trying to think what would be a good ironic line for him to say right as he dies, and that's perfect. Yeah, a cold day in hell before smash, he's gone. Yeah, okay, we'll roll with the miss. Let's jump back to the mixed success, and then we'll go to stars and wishes. So, back in the lobby of the Skyward Sprawl, you two have both explained essentially what it sounds almost like re-santification, right? So you're going to adjust the plans, reaffirm the Slag King's dominion over this tower by actually making it seem that all the growth that's happened so far is approved of and sanctified, but that there shall be no more. So it's, yeah, like Vitri said, a phase 2 for the tower.
Vitri is going to keep saying, and as we always planned, phase 2. You know, sort of try and convince them it was always going to be phase 2.
Father Munger is kind of nodding, and he says, yes, you know what, that could work. That absolutely could work. And he starts kind of grabbing the blueprints, and he says, we would need to find Lucien Baton's original blueprints, adjust those, include a record and a note saying that this was why we're moving to phase 2, but I do believe that we can make a very good start here. And I think, Nora, you can hear that enraged voice of the architect just over your shoulder whispering, no, the sprawl must grow, the sprawl must grow. No, it cannot be, you must stop them. And that mural that had the face of Mother Asbestos, Nora, you look up just as you see the light falling through, it darkens as something getting larger and larger just crashes through. And Mother Asbestos perches on the shattered window over the doors. And she has changed. She has become less human than ever. She now has a large pair of gargoylean metal fiber wings just raising from her back, magnificently spreading upwards. And she looks down and says, I thought we had a deal.
Whatever your agenda was, Mother, you've forgotten it. The sprawl's taken it.
What agenda? My agenda is to take Lucien Baton's vision to its fullest extent, to raise this tower into the sky as he predicted for us. And in the sky, all of us, even you, zealot of the Slag King, she says, pointing to Father Munger, shall have peace and ease amongst the clouds. You've learnt nothing, child of the Slag King. You've learnt nothing. And as she stares down at you, Vitria, you sense again that she knows a bit more about you than she should, that perhaps she's not just referring to these events, but she is thinking about how you gave away your father. She says, there are rules, but we must break them. We must break the rules, we must shatter the blueprints if we are ever to be free. Do this now and you will be subject to their rules forever. No better than a zealot.
And I think Vitria shouts, project management is a continuous process of adjustment when scope changes and when the risk register expands. We are correcting your mistake. We are correcting Baton's mistake. Phase 2 will go ahead. We will make a good and proper count.
I think she... Go on, Nora.
I was going to say, I think Nora kind of like just raises her hand like she's in school and is like, you don't mind me asking, or even if you do mind me asking, if the point is to get to the clouds, why didn't you do the whole, she kind of gestures, wing thing before now? That seems like it would be more direct.
She looks at you with something like pity and says, "What is the use of being in the heavens if you are alone? Are the heavens truly heavenly if we have no one to share them with? I hoped this tower could be a place for all. This tower could mean something to so many people. I wanted to bring them with me, and I will not let you take that away from me." And I think she is, her wings are spreading as if she is intending fully to swoop down at the three of you. You have a moment to react. What do you want to do?
I have an idea, but it's kind of extreme. Do you have any ideas, Ryan?
Right now, what I'm very tempted to do is like make this a musical episode. Could we do that? Could I like
Oh,
really
yeah.
make
How
it
can
a
you even
musical
ask me that?
fight?
Yes, please. Yeah.
That can't be unsaid. Now that you've said that, that can't possibly be unsaid.
Oops. Okay, let's hopefully make it more like Once More with Feeling than whatever Riverdale did. Guess let's try All the World's a Stage. Eh. Except I've got a disappointment, so I'm rolling with disadvantage. This is gonna be fun. So I think Lucien Baton's argument has kind of gotten to Nora, and she like picks up one of the paperweights, like fully facing Mother Asbestos, and then kind of just like picking up a paperweight and throwing it like where the ghost is, and it's being like, and could you just shut up? And paperweight kind of shatters on the wall. And yeah, I think like James has said, there's kind of a little explosion of the spores, and then she kind of looks slightly horrified, like, oh, I should not have done that. I should not have done that. And then she's kind of looks up and is like, so if we could have a little bit of help with this, that would be great. And that kind of trails off into a song, and I am not going to sing right now as it is late. And I think that sort of starts, I don't know, the spores are probably from some poor guy who was a, I don't know, musical theater actor or something. So his like, let's solve this by putting on a play, is infecting everybody. And I think as Mother Asbestos swoops down, she also kind of gets a face full of these spores, and then she does like a flip and lands in the center of the room, and some spotlights, and we don't know where the spotlights are coming from, are just on her. And she kind of starts singing her argument for why the sprawl must rise. And then we get, what is the name of the zealots leader? I forgot.
Father Munger.
And okay, we get Father Munger kind of, now there's a spotlight on him, and he's sort of singing back. So it's like an argument back and forth, and
as is obligatory, because he has a speech synthesizer, there has to be a small amount of auto tune, because that's part of the rules, that there always has to be auto tune at some point.
yes. And
Right.
he's got his like zealots as backup dancers. And then I think the elevator descends and lets out a bunch of like Mother Asbestos's allocates, and they are her backup dancers. And kind of the Watcher in the Wings has just infected this whole tower with a musical episode. And hold on one second, I need to ignore a call. But yeah, we've got this whole back and forth, and then it kind of ends in our two lead singers kind of in each other's faces, just pointing at each other like, you are wrong. No, you are wrong. And we've got just, and then I think we get like another one of the infected somehow managed to get past the soldiers outside, and he kind of stumbles through the doors, and with the doors open, the spores sort of disperse, and then everyone is just standing there frozen in their like final dance positions. And then Nora, who was standing to the side and out of the way and kind of just singing backup every once in a while, is like, could we all just sit down, shut up for a second, and try to work something out that isn't going to, destroy the whole town? And now I have to roll and see how that goes.
You do, and as a reminder, you have a disappointment, so you're rolling at disadvantage, and if you roll a miss, you are going to be killed on the spot by the Watcher in the Wings. So good luck. I love this, and I can't wait to see how it goes.
That is a 5, a 2, and a 3.
I think what happens is it all plays out for Vitria's kind of stunned eyes exactly as you've indicated. So Mother Asbestos descends on the lobby floor, which now seems very much like a stage. Kind of darkness gathers on all sides. She lands and she begins to sing. You think you can stop my tower? Have a taste of my power. Oh, great and mighty sprawl, hear my call. And as she sings that, the elevator doors open and the her acolytes kind of rush out performing this chorus line. Father Munger gets up alongside her. He's singing too. Now we have come to the end of the road. This tower must be up to code. And as both of them kind of dueling solos rise and rise and rise, suddenly there's silence. Everyone is frozen. And Nora, you just realize you are in the center of the stage, and darkness descends on these figures, supporting players in your story, nothing more. And the spotlight just clunk lands on you, and you suddenly feel very alone and very illuminated. You are seen. Every inch of you, every weakness, every vulnerability, every failure that has brought you to this point, you are seen. And he is so, so disappointed in you. And you just hear, and the clap slows and fades to nothing. And then you can feel the curtain closing in. Nothing but silence. You cannot move. There will be no encore. And the curtain just gathers in closer and closer. And you can feel it suffocating you, twisting around you, tighter, tighter. And you can feel your limbs just apart as you're crushed smaller and smaller. And you think about that first day in the military base, playing dares with the other kids. It was for nothing. You were performing. You were trying to be someone else, and it was all for nothing. You were never the star of this show. It will go on without you. And just the final thing you hear is your bones splintering and fragmenting. And for a moment, it sounds like rapturous applause.
I think to make that slightly more horrific,
Go on.
the people outside who are watching this, I think, would kind of just see Nora getting like curled up and crushed tighter and tighter by some invisible force. But all they can hear is her laughing as she dies.
I love that. Yeah, Vitria can only see you being kind of crushed into this sort of tight, broken corpse and just laughing hysterically as it happens.
Nora needs therapy. She is not in a good place ever. Yeah, that's terrifying. I do have a verse to mark, so I'm going to move that to a big
Okay,
success.
sounds good. Let's do it.
Because I don't feel like making a new character right now. So I am going to mark what works here. I think with all the flash and lights, I'm going to mark a flashback to the event which made you step away from your faith, because Nora is literally stepping away and kind of standing in the background.
Right, very nice. Okay, well, we'll see what happens next time. I reckon let's call it there. That was a very bombastic end to the session. Thank you, folks. Okay, let's Ryan, let's start with you if that's okay. Let's see XP. How did you do?
Okay, sure, Google. That's fine. Google just flashed up a banner. It's cool. So we have not yet completed any assignments. Ooh, does making Mother's Bestest sing and dance count as engaging with a divine manifestation?
Oh yeah, it
Definitely,
totally
yeah.
does.
To deliver a monologue about any of the following gods. I don't think I delivered a monologue. Did you go out of your way to connect with the local community? Does timber count as the community? I think Vitria did more of that than Nora did. So just the one.
Okay, very nice. I think, yeah, it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that you will complete this assignment next time. So that is coming up. Alex, how did Dr. Harrow do?
I engaged with the God Angel other divine manifestation. I mean, we had the latecomer crash the party literally and come and kill our main suspect. Did you undermine the orders of your superiors to use the assignment to pursue your personal interests? Yeah, I mean, I passed my irradiation on to a person here. That would definitely be my personal interests. Did I struggle with my personal faith? Here's my argument. I know that the spirit of that question is like, did you struggle with your faith as in like your devotion to your faith? But considering that my faith is the chemical convocation and it irradiated me and that was making me sick and I was struggling to hold myself together, I'd consider that struggling with my faith.
It's technically correct, the best kind of correct. Go for it.
Very good. I've taken
3,
advance.
which gets you an advance. Exciting. James, how did Vitria do?
So I got more wonderful little helpful things from the sprawl or the bell. No, the bellhop it was showing me my father, which is a wonderful, delightful thing to do. And we also got attacked by musical Mother Asbestos. I delivered a monologue about the nature of the Slag King, and or the nature of the building, and in doing so, I also spoke of the terror or marvelous nature of architecture.
Lovely, thank you. And David for Frank.
Yeah, so same engaging with God, angel, or other divine manifestation. We did encounter the saint there at the very end. I think for did you go out of your way to connect with the local community? Frank did, like, upon like barely even talking to him, immediately was like, oh, like you're in servitude down here and you've got like this ankle monitor that keeps you here and you want out. Yeah, sure, I'll definitely help you with that. Like I will commit that I will do that before we leave here. Which I think is very, very in line with Frank and very in line with connecting with the local community. And then Frank did have a monologue about kind of like the nature of God and men, and like when he was speaking with Lenora about like why it is man's like domain to be like to have the potential for goodness and to treat each other with care, and that it is the gods who are to be capricious, and taking that is it may be in pursuit of the divine, but not in the divine in a positive way.
Yeah,
I think
that
that's
makes
what I'm angling
perfect
for.
sense. Sounds great to me. Let's do it. Cool. So that'll be 3 for you. Awesome. I guess then just stars and wishes. And I'd love to go first because I loved so much what you folks did. It was really wonderful to hear the 2 answered questions. It really, like, the last half hour felt so climactic, even if one question was like a false ending with Dr. Ghibli. So yeah, loved your kind of theory crafting and those. Thought it was fantastic. James, I really enjoyed and just appreciated as a player when at the end, when kind of it was very obviously Vitria-centric with this Slag King off, but you just turning and saying over to Nora, which then set up Rhyme, and then Rhyme, you came in with that fantastic ending. It was so good from you, Rhyme, but just also really appreciated, James, just you being a considerate and giving player and making sure that you were sharing the spotlight there, which then led to this incredible climax. So yeah, really enjoyed that. And then I loved both Frank and Dr. Harrow getting tough in really unexpected ways. Alex, you really threw me with kind of focusing in on Ray Ghibli and basically, what's the word? Extorting him. And then suddenly turning and grabbing the skier who I'm really interested to see what happens to Frank Palanche. I can't wait to see what gruesome fate you have in store for him.
Gonna be
And then
really
Frank,
gross.
good. And then Frank in the freezer, kind of grabbing the knife, I thought was so startling and so impressive. And that little speech about how there wouldn't be a trail of bodies if you had the power of the latecomer at your side. Really threatening and intimidating, and a lovely extra side to Frank that we hadn't seen. So yeah, loved the role playing, loved the questions and answers. Wishes, I know last time we talked about kind of being ready to meet up again and get the conspiracy moving. I'm glad we didn't kind of rush that and sort of stuck with these big endings, but definitely really excited to kind of, I think, probably very much get that moving next session. Anyone else?
I mean, we got a star, obviously, the musical. That was insane, but specifically John, the vocal works over there. Goodness, the rhymes on the fly. A god must feed, more like a god must sing. That was great. That was delightful. I was losing my mind. I don't think I can ever have something like this ever happen again. I feel like I have looked into the eye of the divinities of this world and I will never recover. That was fantastic. And also way to lean fully into it, Ryan. That was again, this is such a fantastic spin on the Watcher in the Wings faith sheet. Again, as somebody who is playing a Watcher in the Wings faith sheet in a completely different way, I love seeing your take of it and like just seeing how like flexible the idea is, and it's really cool. I for a second thought you were actually going to be like, yeah, I think that's Nora's end, and I'm cool that she's getting her second season, but I was for a moment I thought that was like, damn, oh, she's dead. David, I continue to love. I mean, I got a star first and foremost. You instilling, afflicting me even with the worst mental auditory nightmare that is your description of how what Frank sounds like when he splits and reintegrates his helping hands. Truly disgusting, and also am inspired in some awful way. That was great. I really did enjoy the scene between Frank and Leonora as well in the freezer. That conversation they had was a great scene. James, star to your ongoing ability with Vitria to stand defiantly in the middle of a scene and dramatically proclaim building codes as if it is just like the most dramatic, and like you're standing from your concrete pulpit just shouting just verses at people, but it sounds all like you just read from a handbook on building code, which I think is just incredible and so much fun. And also starred to James's face while the musical was going on, because you were losing it and it was so fucking funny. Wishes. I cannot wait to see where the Winter Spite like mystery is going to go now, like how we're going to like spin a new theory and how we're going to deal with the consequences. Frank and Nim are having a wonderfully bad time, and I can't wait to see if this doesn't resolve with the whole hotel burning down at this point. I don't know what's going to happen. And I really hope Peter makes it out okay. That guy deserves a second chance. And what other wishes might I have? Oh, I'm excited to do. I have an outstanding verse I meant to do this session. I just forgot. So I'm looking forward to doing that one next time. Because I don't know, I'm just excited for it. So yeah, more world building.
Yeah, immediate star. Like, I had other stuff outlined. I was already like starting to like build a list of kind of stars and stuff from the episode, and then we had a musical finale, and it was just like, of course, yeah, no, this makes sense. This is like the logical place for this to go next. Yeah, this is great. There was a comment in the side chat from James talking about the mother's bestest as a puppet held up by people in black leotards, and I cannot shake that image from my mind in imagining the scene play out. What I really love about that is like world building wise is just the truly terrifying power of the Watcher in the Wings as an entity, like to turn even this saint and these acolytes of this other faith into the playthings of this scene on display for others to see and behold. Like that's it's just so good. It's like it's that kind of things where like it makes you shake someone by the shoulders and be like, think about the implications, because it's terrifying. It's awful. Yeah, Star as well. Oh man, I love I love role playing alongside Alex, because we can just be like, yeah, let's just take the L here. Yeah, no, this is great. It's way better if we just let this ride and then deal with the consequences. I know like both of us have been kind of hoping maybe something went wrong anyway. So like getting a 5, rolling a 1 on my half of the dice was just perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better number. Started that.
I will say on the side real quick, like an additional star on that is like high level CFB advanced player technique number whatever is like, we have this awesome theory, we're super invested in it, we love it, we fail, you know what, fuck it, this is cool, let's ride. That is always, I love embracing the game like that. So yeah, you're great to play with.
I think it's what's like really great about it. It's one of the things that keeps me coming back to Carver Birdwood Games is like the mishmash of like player agency and like the amount that a keeper can sway things just by telling a cool idea. It's just like, oh yeah, no, like I absolutely have the power to like override this and we could do something else completely, but no, that's like, this is too bad for me. I have to let this happen. I have to see what happens when we challenge this now. I just really enjoy that kind of stuff. So I started that and the development of that. And yeah, I love anytime Vitria can soapbox. It's always a joy. I think I don't know if I really expected there to be such a mix of horror and comedy specifically for the Skyward Sprawl, but there's something just so easily humorous in the like macabre absurdity of the place that makes, yeah, like, yeah, on the one hand it is like dramatically important to be like, no, building codes we're working on phase 2 of the project. Like, project management is revision. You must adapt. And like having that be on the one hand so funny, on the other hand like so like meaningfully impactful in this moment. I don't know, that gap is always really nice. On as far as wishes are concerned, yeah, I mean, I want to see. Obviously both of these are very close to their conclusion. I would love for us to resolve these next time, and I'm really curious as to where that's going to go. Yeah.
I think. Oh, go on. Sorry, go ahead, Ram. Sorry.
Thanks. I guess I was also going to say, yeah, massive star to John for rolling with the musical episode and ad-libbing songs on the fly. And also for the dramatic, ironic death of the #1 suspect in Winter's Spite. That was great. And then David and Alex just rolling with it. That's going to be fun to see what happens next time, which I guess is a wish, that we'll see the horrible consequences of that. Hopefully without our custodians dying terribly, just because I'm sort of attached. And yeah, James rolling with Vitria's dad just showing up. And now you're haunted by that, which is also going to be interesting to play with. This might turn into Vitria asking other people to open doors for her, which could be amusing. And yeah, seeing that other side of Frank where he's just, well, not even another side of him. It's just that he is so committed to helping people out, like to his own detriment, like with the knife. And Frank possibly also needs therapy. Just, it's really good, and I am looking forward to seeing how we conclude both of these, and seeing what has happened in Merrill Ward since we've been gone, because that's gonna be a
I think everyone said all the things I liked the most. I thought like the Watcher in the Wings makes unexpected sort of genre changes like feel just like the most natural thing in the world. And I'm so glad that happened. And it had that perfect thing I was saying in the chats of all musical episodes where it's unclear whether it was a real thing or whether it was like a gestalt hallucination. I think the best ones are like that, where it's sort of unclear if there was ever really like I love that. I was saying in the chat I've come to love musical episodes, but I used to hate them. So I'm a sort of relatively recent but enthusiastic convert to them. So I really enjoyed that. And there was something just really chilling about like Frank grabbing the knife blade. Like there's this sort of weaponized help. It's just so good. Like I know that was a thing for Frank that was like a plan to show the kind of many faces of being forced to be helpful, but it's just working so well. And yeah, just like Nim sort of choosing to sort of transfer the radiation on like that, just so much good stuff. And rolling with the failures, yeah, I just love that there was that false resolution. It shows how sort of interchangeable the Carve from Brindlewood rules can be, where it just felt like a classic kind of, like Brindlewood Bay style mystery with the false it's great how you can just slot things together like that into a game that in other ways has drifted quite far from that kind of template. It just really worked. And I guess in terms of wishes, like it's interesting because I noticed that Nim, Harrow and Vitri are both being driven like quite hard in terms of the verses, but our other two custodians have been more like insulated. So there's quite a possibility of there's quite a differential in survivability opening up between the custodians, and we've reached 5 conspiracy clues now. And if we're asking about what's with the Minuteman, my wish is to know have we left it too long, or can we get back to Marrowwood in time to resolve it? Because it's getting a bit dicey for us with that one now. So I just want to see more of how this is all going to wrap up and what the next set's going to be and how the because we're at a really good sort of inflection point now for the next session.
I think that's, yeah, definite agreement. Really excited to see what happens next. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being amazing, folks, as always. And thank you for anyone who's watching this.